Let's today talk about heat waves in India and India's power demand. Now, according to IMD, as you would all know, heat wave conditions were reported in parts of Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Delhi, UP, Rajasthan, and a lot of places in India on April 24. Now, similar conditions are expected to persist across Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh, and Delhi through April 25 and the next week onwards. Now, the IMD has also warned that the heat wave conditions are likely to prevail over the plains of northwest and central India over the next 3 to 4 days.
India is reeling under an intense heat wave, with temperatures already crossing 40 degrees Celsius in April and rising further across several regions. From Delhi to Mumbai, Jaipur to Kolkata, major cities are witnessing scorching conditions with temperatures ranging between 40 to 45 degrees Celsius. States like Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar are facing continuous hot days unusual for this time of the year. With April already this severe, the coming months could be even more challenging.
Now, on April 24, Prayagraj in Uttar Pradesh recorded highest temperature in the country at 45.2 degrees Celsius. Now, IMD data shows maximum temperatures of 43 degrees Celsius and above were recorded across several states including Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Odisha, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Haryana and Delhi. Now, India is in the grip of an early onset of summer and extreme heat events in 2026, with 98 of the world's 100 hottest cities currently located within its borders.
Real-time data from AQI.in shows that nearly 95 of the world's 100 hottest cities today are in India, with places like Orcha, Moradabad, Akola staring at temperatures above 44 degrees Celsius.
And heat wave in India is not just a problem which has come up just now. It is a problem which has prevailed in our country, which has made our country suffer, especially in the last one decade. Which is why today we will be talking about heat waves plus the sudden spike in energy and power demand in India because of this heat wave situation. Hello, my name is Preetpal Singh and all of you are watching Perspective. Now let us very briefly try to understand what do you mean by this heat wave. Now heat wave refers to the period of abnormally high temperatures, more than the normal maximum temperature that occurs during the summer season. Now in India, heat waves typically occur between March and June month, depending on the advent of monsoon in our country. And the heat wave is also called a silent disaster as it develops slowly and it kills and injures humans and animals worldwide. Now the annual temperature is rising globally, we all know that, and this is reflected in an increase in heat waves in several parts of the world, including our country, India. Now, a multi-sectoral and multi-dimensional approach is required to address governance challenges which are connected to disaster risk management for heat waves in our country, which is why heat wave is a very, very big problem which our country altogether needs to deal with. Now, while we are discussing about heat waves, let us also discuss about India's peak electricity demand. Now, due to these heat waves, India's peak electricity demand has surged to a 5-year high unusually early in this particular season. Now, as heat wave conditions, they drive up cooling needs across large parts of the country, we require more power to be generated to meet that higher demand, higher cooling needs. And data from the Grid India, it shows that the peak power demand, it touched around 252 gigawatts on April 24th, already surpassing recent summer highs and edging past the previous peak of 249 gigawatts recorded on May 2024, which means that early advent of summer in our country by April itself has actually passed the peak of the last year. And these peak demand figures, whether daily or whether monthly, are largely statistical reference points as they reflect the highest load recorded at any moment during a given period on a particular day, often for a brief duration. Now, if we talk about traditional circumstances, traditionally, electricity demand peaks during the summer months of June and July or in early autumn, whether it be September or October, which is driven by widespread air conditioner AC usage across household and commercial establishments. Now, traditionally, these were the months where ACs were used at a very high pace. But this year, however, The surge has arrived in April itself, when air conditioners have just started to be used by the households, by the commercial establishments, and it is pointing to an early onset of heat stress in key regions in our country. Now, the last time annual peak demand was reached this early in the year was 2022-2023. Now, the rise is also sharp on a year-on-year basis as well. And in April of 2025, if we see last year, peak demand stood at 235 gigawatts. Compared to now, 252 gigawatts so far for this particular month. Which is why what we need to understand here is that it's not a very common scenario. It's not normal for power demand and power capacity of a country to meet its demand at such a high pace when such type of a scenario of heat wave is going on. Which is why let us also try to understand the current scenario of heat waves in India. See, first of all, as we are very clear with this, India's vulnerability to heat wave has increased considerably. Now, there is a report, a Lancet Countdown on Health and Climate Change report. It says, it's a Lancet report, it says that India has become 15% more vulnerable to extremes of heat than in 1990s. So from 1990s onwards till today, we are 15% more vulnerable to the extremes of heat. And according to IPCC report, every additional 0.5 degrees Celsius of warming will increase hot weather extremes along with extreme precipitation and drought conditions in our country. Now, as we all know, India is a tropical country. It bears a high vulnerability to heat waves due to global warming, which is why, because of these reasons, there is enhanced intensity of heat waves in our country. And as per international climate report by the G20 countries, it was given, heat waves in India are likely to last 25 times longer by 2036 to 2065, which is upcoming 30 years if carbon emissions remain high and the rise in global temperature continues like it is continuing today. So according to the officials who are aware of this particular matter, the primary reason for the shortfall during the non-solar hours was a spike in forced and partial outages. Now we are trying to relate heat waves and power supply. See, heat waves, from the previous discussion we understood that India is now more vulnerable and the intensity of heat waves in India is much higher. And because of this particular reason, the demand for power, the demand for electricity will also be higher because we would want to use more ACs, more refrigerators, more cooling equipments. And as more cooling equipments are used, more energy is required and more energy is demanded. For that, we need to have that much energy capacity as well. And which is why I told you that according to the officials aware of the matter, the primary reason for the shortfall during the non-solar hours was a spike in forced and partial outages as well. So outages is also a very big problem. Now, while planned outages were expected to be limited to around 3 gigawatts on both the days, forced and partial outages surged to nearly 26 gigawatts. So forced and partial outages, again, they are for what? They're due to what? Heat waves only. Also, one more reason was attributed towards it, and that was the gap in the demand and supply during the non-solar hours to forced outages in the coal-based power plants, which is approximately around 18 gigawatts. And there was also partial outage of 3 to 4 gigawatts as well. So the total outage was around 21 gigawatts. Now, a planned maintenance shutdown of a generation unit is a temporary pause to perform crucial repairs, inspections and upgrades in that unit that cannot be done while the plant is running. And in contrast, the forced outages are unplanned disruptions, which are either caused by technical failures, equipment failures, fuel constraints or anything. The high level of such outages on Friday, Saturday, it was largely driven by extreme heat conditions, as I've already told you, which put actually additional stress on the equipments, additional stress on the generation equipments, and also reduced plant availability precisely when the demand was peaking late in the evening. And on those 2 days when the demand was really very high, the demand for electricity was really high, the country's thermal power plants generated around 184 to 187 gigawatts out of the installed capacity of 227 gigawatts. So that is a very big problem. Now, through data, we are able to understand that where actually the problem lied, that how due to heat waves, our electricity generation capacity also took a hit. And meanwhile, spot electricity prices in the country are also witnessing a sharp increase at night, reflecting the stress on the grid as scorching temperatures drive demand for power to run appliances like ACs. And we get the data from Indian Energy Exchange as well, which says that the country's biggest power trading bourse, it says, shows the spot price of electricity in the day ahead market DAM segment touching the maximum regulatory limit of rupees 10 per kilowatt hour. And this is at night before declining to around rupees 1.5 per kilowatt hour during the day. So at night you see how the price of the spot electricity have increased, and which is why we are very clearly able to establish the impact of rigorous scorching heat and heat waves on energy capacity, energy production capacity alongside the entire country. Also, by the way, the IMD has also stated that the gradual relief from heat wave conditions is expected to be from Tuesday, but let us see what happens. The last time annual peak demand was reached, as I've told you, was in 2022-2023, right? So after that, now 4 years after that, we see again increase in demand in 2026-2027. And also please understand, this rise is also sharp on year basis, as I've already told you, and which is why if we compare it with the previous years as well, we are very clearly able to establish that heat waves in our country are definitely devastating. See, now since we have very clearly established a critical relationship, a direct relationship between heat waves and power generation capacity for country, one more thing which is very integral for us to understand is that why such level of heat waves is happening in our country. See, first of all, this is how climate change actually looks like. This is how global warming actually looks like. And if we continue to cut our trees, so if we continue to cut mangroves, if we continue to cut Aravallis, which were in discussion in the last few months, or we continue to damage mangroves of our country in the southern part, or if we continue to devastate and deforest our environment, this will continue to increase. This is not going to continue to stop. This is going to continue, and more fragility of the environment will be seen because of these circumstances. If deforestation continues, if illegal mining continues, if more usage of coal, more usage of non-renewable resources, if it continues and if it's maximized, the day is not far when our future generation will have to deal with extreme heat events, extreme outages, and then even the newer technology won't be able to solve the problems. Which is why additionally what is required for us to do now is to move towards renewable sources of energy. That is one which we can do. See, there can be both the paths. First of all, you don't harm the environment, so you cut the harm, right? Plus you bring in some alternatives, so that while you're cutting the harm, while you're reducing the harm to the environment, some alternate resources can be used so that our energy demand is met, and our energy demand is not taking a hit, and our energy supply is maintained to meet its demand. So both the things proactively needs to be done in order to ensure that such extreme events like heat waves, which can have devastating impacts on our health, by the way, they are prevented and they are not a risk upon the lives of humans in our country. I hope you gained a new perspective from this session. Do let me know your opinions in the comment section. All the very best and have a beautiful day. Thank you.